An equation can have one solution. An equation can have one solution. A variable represents an unknown value. A variable represents an unknown value. Solving for x involves isolating it. Solving for x involves isolating it. Polynomials are sums of terms. Polynomials are sums of terms. Quadratic equations have a parabolic graph. Quadratic equations have a parabolic graph. Inequalities show a range of solutions. Inequalities show a range of solutions. A linear equation has a constant rate of change. A linear equation has a constant rate of change. Exponents indicate repeated multiplication. Exponents indicate repeated multiplication. Logarithms are the inverse of exponentiation. Logarithms are the inverse of exponentiation. The distributive property expands expressions. The distributive property expands expressions. A triangle has three sides. A triangle has three sides. Parallel lines never meet. Parallel lines never meet. The area of a circle is pi times radius squared. The area of a circle is pi times radius squared. The sum of interior angles of a polygon is n2 * 180. The sum of interior angles of a polygon is n2 * 180. A square has four equal sides. A square has four equal sides. A rectangle has opposite sides equal. A rectangle has opposite sides equal. Circles are defined by their center and radius. Circles are defined by their center and radius. Perpendicular lines intersect at a right angle. Perpendicular lines intersect at a right angle. The Pythagorean theorem relates sides of a right triangle. The Pythagorean theorem relates sides of a right triangle. Symmetry divides shapes into mirror images. Symmetry divides shapes into mirror images. Derivatives represent the rate of change. Derivatives represent the rate of change. Integrals calculate area under a curve. Integrals calculate area under a curve. A limit describes a value approaching a point. A limit describes a value approaching a point. Differentiation is the process of finding a derivative. Differentiation is the process of finding a derivative. The chain rule combines derivatives of functions. The chain rule combines derivatives of functions. Partial derivatives work with multivariable functions. Partial derivatives work with multivariable functions. An integral can be definite or indefinite. An integral can be definite or indefinite. L'Hopital's rule handles indeterminate forms. L'Hopital's rule handles indeterminate forms. Continuity means no jumps in a function. Continuity means no jumps in a function. Integration by parts is a technique for solving. Integration by parts is a technique for solving. The mean is the average value. The mean is the average value. A standard deviation measures data spread. A standard deviation measures data spread. The median is the middle value. The median is the middle value. Probability quantifies likelihood. Probability quantifies likelihood. A histogram displays data distribution. A histogram displays data distribution. A sample represents a subset of a population. A sample represents a subset of a population. Outliers affect the dataset. Outliers affect the dataset. The mode is the most frequent value. The mode is the most frequent value. Variance measures data deviation from the mean. Variance measures data deviation from the mean. Regression predicts data relationships. Regression predicts data relationships. A prime number is only divisible by 1 in itself. A prime number is only divisible by 1 in itself. The Fibonacci sequence starts with 0 and 1. The Fibonacci sequence starts with 0 and 1. Divisibility rules help factor numbers. Divisibility rules help factor numbers. The greatest common divisor is the largest factor. The greatest common divisor is the largest factor. A composite number has more than two factors. A composite number has more than two factors. The number 0 is neither prime nor composite. The number 0 is neither prime nor composite. Perfect numbers equal the sum of their divisors. Perfect numbers equal the sum of their divisors. A square number has an integer square root. A square number has an integer square root. The number 1 is a unit, not prime. The number 1 is a unit, not prime. Congruence deals with remainder relationships. Congruence deals with remainder relationships. Events are outcomes in probability. Events are outcomes in probability. Conditional probability involves dependent events. Conditional probability involves dependent events. The sum of probabilities of all outcomes equals 1. The sum of probabilities of all outcomes equals 1. Independent events do not affect each other. Independent events do not affect each other. Bayes' theorem calculates posterior probabilities. Bayes' theorem calculates posterior probabilities. Random variables can be discrete or continuous. Random variables can be discrete or continuous. The probability of the complement is 1 minus the probability. The probability of the complement is 1 minus the probability. A probability distribution describes outcomes. A probability distribution describes outcomes. Expected value is the long-term average. Expected value is the long-term average. Variance measures the spread of a distribution. Variance measures the spread of a distribution. A topological space consists of points and open sets. A topological space consists of points and open sets. Homeomorphisms preserve topological properties. Homeomorphisms preserve topological properties. A torus is a surface with a single hole. A torus is a surface with a single hole. Continuous functions map points without breaks. Continuous functions map points without breaks. Compact sets are closed and bounded. Compact sets are closed and bounded. A connected space has a single piece. A connected space has a single piece. A path-connected space has continuous paths. A path-connected space has continuous paths. The Klein bottle is a non-orientable surface. The Klein bottle is a non-orientable surface. Mobius strips have one side. Mobius strips have one side. Topological invariants classify spaces. Topological invariants classify spaces. A vector has both magnitude and direction. A vector has both magnitude and direction. Matrices can be multiplied if compatible. Matrices can be multiplied if compatible. Eigenvalues represent matrix transformations. Eigenvalues represent matrix transformations. A determinant indicates matrix invertibility. A determinant indicates matrix invertibility. The dot product calculates projection. The dot product calculates projection. Linear transformations map vectors to new vectors. Linear transformations map vectors to new vectors. A basis spans a vector space. A basis spans a vector space. Vector spaces have dimension. Vector spaces have dimension. Matrix rank indicates independence. Matrix rank indicates independence. Orthogonal vectors are perpendicular. Orthogonal vectors are perpendicular. Combinatorics studies counting and arrangements. Combinatorics studies counting and arrangements. Permutations are ordered arrangements of items. Permutations are ordered arrangements of items. Combinations are selections without order. Combinations are selections without order. The binomial theorem expands expressions. The binomial theorem expands expressions. Graph theory is part of combinatorics. Graph theory is part of combinatorics. Pigeonhole principle guarantees repeated elements. Pigeonhole principle guarantees repeated elements. Combinatorial proofs use counting principles. Combinatorial proofs use counting principles. Recurrence relations describe sequence patterns. Recurrence relations describe sequence patterns. Stirling numbers count permutations with cycles. Stirling numbers count permutations with cycles. Catalan numbers count balanced structures. Catalan numbers count balanced structures. Differential equations model changing systems. Differential equations model changing systems. Ordinary differential equations involve single variables. Ordinary differential equations involve single variables. Partial differential equations involve multiple variables. Partial differential equations involve multiple variables. Solutions can be exact or approximate. Solutions can be exact or approximate. Initial value problems define starting conditions. Initial value problems define starting conditions. Separation of variables solves simple cases. Separation of variables solves simple cases. The Laplace transform simplifies equations. The Laplace transform simplifies equations. Eigenvalues and eigenvectors are used in solutions. Eigenvalues and eigenvectors are used in solutions. Boundary conditions are crucial for PDEs. Boundary conditions are crucial for PDEs. Nonlinear equations can have complex behaviors. Nonlinear equations can have complex behaviors. Mathematical logic formalizes reasoning. Mathematical logic formalizes reasoning. Propositional logic uses simple statements. Propositional logic uses simple statements. Predicate logic adds quantifiers to statements. Predicate logic adds quantifiers to statements. Logical operators include and, or, not. Logical operators include and, or, not. Proofs can be direct or by contradiction. Proofs can be direct or by contradiction. A tautology is always true. A tautology is always true. Theorems are proven through logical deduction. Theorems are proven through logical deduction. Set theory underpins mathematical logic. Set theory underpins mathematical logic. Gödel's incompleteness theorem limits provability. Gödel's incompleteness theorem limits provability. Boolean algebra is essential for computation. Boolean algebra is essential for computation. Mathematical analysis studies functions and limits. Mathematical analysis studies functions and limits. The epsilon delta definition of a limit. The epsilon delta definition of a limit. Continuity means no jumps in a function. Continuity means no jumps in a function. The derivative measures rate of change. The derivative measures rate of change. Integrals represent area under curves. Integrals represent area under curves. Convergence of series is a key concept. Convergence of series is a key concept. Real analysis extends calculus to real numbers. Real analysis extends calculus to real numbers. Differentiability implies continuity. Differentiability implies continuity. The mean value theorem relates derivatives. The mean value theorem relates derivatives. Pointwise and uniform convergence differ in behavior. Pointwise and uniform convergence differ in behavior. Discrete mathematics deals with countable structures. Discrete mathematics deals with countable structures. Graph theory studies vertices and edges. Graph theory studies vertices and edges. Logic forms the foundation of computation. Logic forms the foundation of computation. Combinatorics handles counting and arrangements. Combinatorics handles counting and arrangements. Set theory explores collections of objects. Set theory explores collections of objects. Algorithms are step-by-step problem solvers. Algorithms are step-by-step problem solvers. Finite automata model simple computation. Finite automata model simple computation. Boolean algebra operates on binary variables. Boolean algebra operates on binary variables. Mathematical induction proves statements recursively. Mathematical induction proves statements recursively. Number theory investigates integers and properties. Number theory investigates integers and properties. Set theory studies collections of elements. Set theory studies collections of elements. A set is a well-defined group of objects. A set is a well-defined group of objects. The union of sets combines elements. The union of sets combines elements. Intersection finds common elements. Intersection finds common elements. A subset is contained within another set. A subset is contained within another set. Cardinality measures set size. Cardinality measures set size. The empty set has no elements. The empty set has no elements. Set operations follow specific properties. Set operations follow specific properties. Power sets include all subsets of a set. Power sets include all subsets of a set. Set theory underpins most of mathematics. Set theory underpins most of mathematics. Group theory studies algebraic structures. Group theory studies algebraic structures. A group has a set with an operation. A group has a set with an operation. Groups must satisfy closure, associativity, identity. Groups must satisfy closure, associativity, identity. An inverse element undoes an operation. An inverse element undoes an operation. Symmetry groups describe object symmetries. Symmetry groups describe object symmetries. The identity element leaves elements unchanged. The identity element leaves elements unchanged. Subgroups are subsets that form groups. Subgroups are subsets that form groups. Group homomorphisms map groups to groups. Group homomorphisms map groups to groups. Cyclic groups are generated by one element. Cyclic groups are generated by one element. Permutation groups involve element rearrangements. Permutation groups involve element rearrangements. Graph theory studies networks of nodes. Graph theory studies networks of nodes. Vertices and edges form a graph. Vertices and edges form a graph. A path is a sequence of connected vertices. A path is a sequence of connected vertices. Graphs can be directed or undirected. Graphs can be directed or undirected. Eulerian paths visit each edge once. Eulerian paths visit each edge once. A tree is a connected acyclic graph. A tree is a connected acyclic graph. Graph coloring assigns colors to nodes. Graph coloring assigns colors to nodes. Graph traversal includes BFS and DFS. Graph traversal includes BFS and DFS. Planar graphs can be drawn without crossings. Planar graphs can be drawn without crossings. Connectivity measures graph structure. Connectivity measures graph structure. Number systems express numerical values. Number systems express numerical values. The decimal system is base 10. The decimal system is base 10. Binary uses base 2 for computation. Binary uses base 2 for computation. Hexadecimal represents numbers in base 16. Hexadecimal represents numbers in base 16. Rational numbers are quotients of integers. Rational numbers are quotients of integers. Irrational numbers cannot be expressed as fractions. Irrational numbers cannot be expressed as fractions. Real numbers include both rationals and irrationals. Real numbers include both rationals and irrationals. Complex numbers have real and imaginary parts. Complex numbers have real and imaginary parts. The natural numbers start from 1. The natural numbers start from 1. 0 is the additive identity. 0 is the additive identity. Complex analysis studies functions of complex numbers. Complex analysis studies functions of complex numbers. Complex numbers have real and imaginary parts. Complex numbers have real and imaginary parts. Cauchy-Riemann equations determine differentiability. Cauchy-Riemann equations determine differentiability. Analytic functions are differentiable in regions. Analytic functions are differentiable in regions. The residue theorem helps in integration. The residue theorem helps in integration. Complex functions can have branch cuts. Complex functions can have branch cuts. A singularity is a point where a function fails. A singularity is a point where a function fails. Conformal mapping preserves angles. Conformal mapping preserves angles. The Riemann zeta function is famous in analysis. The Riemann zeta function is famous in analysis. The unit circle represents all complex numbers. The unit circle represents all complex numbers. Functional analysis studies infinite-dimensional spaces. Functional analysis studies infinite-dimensional spaces. Banach spaces are complete normed vector spaces. Banach spaces are complete normed vector spaces. Hilbert spaces are complete inner product spaces. Hilbert spaces are complete inner product spaces. Linear operators map between vector spaces. Linear operators map between vector spaces. The spectral theorem applies to self-adjoint operators. The spectral theorem applies to self-adjoint operators. Compact operators have compact images. Compact operators have compact images. Fixed-point theorems are central in analysis. Fixed-point theorems are central in analysis. Convergence of sequences is studied in spaces. Convergence of sequences is studied in spaces. Functional spaces include continuous functions. Functional spaces include continuous functions. The Hahn-Banach theorem extends linear functionals. The Hahn-Banach theorem extends linear functionals. Mathematical modeling translates real problems into math. Mathematical modeling translates real problems into math. Differential equations model dynamic systems. Differential equations model dynamic systems. Modeling involves assumptions and simplifications. Modeling involves assumptions and simplifications. The Laplace transform simplifies equations. The Laplace transform simplifies equations. Numerical methods approximate solutions. Numerical methods approximate solutions. Boundary conditions are crucial in models. Boundary conditions are crucial in models. Optimization finds the best solutions. Optimization finds the best solutions. Stochastic models incorporate randomness. Stochastic models incorporate randomness. Modeling can predict future system behavior. Modeling can predict future system behavior. Initial conditions determine solution uniqueness. Initial conditions determine solution uniqueness. Algebraic geometry studies solutions to polynomial equations. Algebraic geometry studies solutions to polynomial equations. Varieties are fundamental objects in algebraic geometry. Varieties are fundamental objects in algebraic geometry. Projective space extends Euclidean space. Projective space extends Euclidean space. Intersection theory studies common solutions. Intersection theory studies common solutions. Singularities are points where geometry changes. Singularities are points where geometry changes. Algebraic curves can be complex or real. Algebraic curves can be complex or real. The genus classifies curves by complexity. The genus classifies curves by complexity. Coherent sheaves generalize functions on varieties. Coherent sheaves generalize functions on varieties. Moduli spaces classify algebraic structures. Moduli spaces classify algebraic structures. Homology groups measure topological properties. Homology groups measure topological properties. Differential geometry studies curves and surfaces. Differential geometry studies curves and surfaces. The tangent space is a linear approximation. The tangent space is a linear approximation. Curvature measures surface bending. Curvature measures surface bending. Riemannian geometry extends Euclidean geometry. Riemannian geometry extends Euclidean geometry. Geodesics are the shortest paths between points. Geodesics are the shortest paths between points. The Gauss-Bonnet theorem relates curvature and topology. The Gauss-Bonnet theorem relates curvature and topology. Differential forms generalize functions. Differential forms generalize functions. Manifolds generalize surfaces to higher dimensions. Manifolds generalize surfaces to higher dimensions. Connection defines how vectors change. Connection defines how vectors change. Parallel transport moves vectors along curves. Parallel transport moves vectors along curves. Real analysis studies properties of real numbers. Real analysis studies properties of real numbers. Limits define the behavior of functions. Limits define the behavior of functions. Continuity means no jumps in a function. Continuity means no jumps in a function. The intermediate value theorem ensures values exist. The intermediate value theorem ensures values exist. Differentiability implies continuity. Differentiability implies continuity. The Cauchy sequence converges in complete spaces. The Cauchy sequence converges in complete spaces. The Bolzano-Weierstrass theorem ensures convergence. The Bolzano-Weierstrass theorem ensures convergence. Measure theory extends integration concepts. Measure theory extends integration concepts. Compact sets are closed and bounded. Compact sets are closed and bounded. The fundamental theorem of calculus relates derivatives and integrals. The fundamental theorem of calculus relates derivatives and integrals. Operations research optimizes decision-making. Operations research optimizes decision-making. Linear programming solves optimization problems. Linear programming solves optimization problems. Queuing theory studies waiting line behavior. Queuing theory studies waiting line behavior. Graph theory models network flows. Graph theory models network flows. Simulation models real-world processes. Simulation models real-world processes. Integer programming handles discrete variables. Integer programming handles discrete variables. Game theory analyzes strategic interactions. Game theory analyzes strategic interactions. Decision trees map outcomes and choices. Decision trees map outcomes and choices. The simplex method solves linear problems. The simplex method solves linear problems. Operations research is applied in logistics. Operations research is applied in logistics. Numerical analysis approximates solutions to problems. Numerical analysis approximates solutions to problems. Error analysis ensures accurate results. Error analysis ensures accurate results. Finite element methods solve partial differential equations. Finite element methods solve partial differential equations. Numerical integration approximates area under curves. Numerical integration approximates area under curves. Root finding algorithms find function zeros. Root finding algorithms find function zeros. The bisection method is a simple root finder. The bisection method is a simple root finder. Interpolation estimates function values at points. Interpolation estimates function values at points. Convergence rates measure solution accuracy. Convergence rates measure solution accuracy. Stability is crucial in numerical algorithms. Stability is crucial in numerical algorithms. Numerical differentiation estimates derivatives. Numerical differentiation estimates derivatives. Mathematical optimization finds the best solution. Mathematical optimization finds the best solution. Linear programming models many real problems. Linear programming models many real problems. Objective functions are maximized or minimized. Objective functions are maximized or minimized. Constraints limit feasible solutions. Constraints limit feasible solutions. The simplex algorithm solves linear programs. The simplex algorithm solves linear programs. Nonlinear optimization handles more complex problems. Nonlinear optimization handles more complex problems. Duality theory relates optimization problems. Duality theory relates optimization problems. Quadratic programming solves quadratic objectives. Quadratic programming solves quadratic objectives. Constrained optimization respects boundary conditions. Constrained optimization respects boundary conditions. Gradient descent finds local minima. Gradient descent finds local minima. Game theory analyzes strategic interactions. Game theory analyzes strategic interactions. A Nash equilibrium occurs when no one benefits. A Nash equilibrium occurs when no one benefits. Zero-sum games have opposite payoffs. Zero-sum games have opposite payoffs. Dominant strategies outperform others. Dominant strategies outperform others. Repeated games can foster cooperation. Repeated games can foster cooperation. Mixed strategies involve probabilities. Mixed strategies involve probabilities. The prisoner's dilemma demonstrates cooperation versus betrayal. The prisoner's dilemma demonstrates cooperation versus betrayal. Extensive form games include decision trees. Extensive form games include decision trees. Game theory applies to economics and politics. Game theory applies to economics and politics. Strategic decisions depend on other players' actions. Strategic decisions depend on other players' actions. Cryptography secures communication through encoding. Cryptography secures communication through encoding. Public key cryptography uses asymmetric keys. Public key cryptography uses asymmetric keys. RSA is a widely used encryption algorithm. RSA is a widely used encryption algorithm. Hash functions create unique data signatures. Hash functions create unique data signatures. Symmetric key cryptography uses the same key. Symmetric key cryptography uses the same key. Encryption protects data integrity. Encryption protects data integrity. Digital signatures verify message authenticity. Digital signatures verify message authenticity. Cryptanalysis attempts to break encryption. Cryptanalysis attempts to break encryption. Elliptic curve cryptography offers security with small keys. Elliptic curve cryptography offers security with small keys. Blockchain technology relies on cryptographic hashes. Blockchain technology relies on cryptographic hashes. Dynamical systems study the evolution over time. Dynamical systems study the evolution over time. Fixed points indicate stability or instability. Fixed points indicate stability or instability. The phase space shows all possible states. The phase space shows all possible states. Linear systems have predictable behaviors. Linear systems have predictable behaviors. Nonlinear systems can have complex dynamics. Nonlinear systems can have complex dynamics. Attractors describe long-term system behavior. Attractors describe long-term system behavior. Chaos theory studies sensitive dependence on initial conditions. Chaos theory studies sensitive dependence on initial conditions. Limit cycles are closed trajectories in the plane. Limit cycles are closed trajectories in the plane. Bifurcation points indicate system changes. Bifurcation points indicate system changes. Stability analysis uses eigenvalues. Stability analysis uses eigenvalues. Theory of computation explores algorithm limits. Theory of computation explores algorithm limits. Turing machines formalize computation. Turing machines formalize computation. Decidability defines what problems can be solved. Decidability defines what problems can be solved. Complexity theory classifies problem difficulty. Complexity theory classifies problem difficulty. P versus NP problem remains unsolved. P versus NP problem remains unsolved. Finite automata recognize simple languages. Finite automata recognize simple languages. Context-free grammars describe programming language syntax. Context-free grammars describe programming language syntax. The Church-Turing thesis defines computation equivalence. The Church-Turing thesis defines computation equivalence. NP-complete problems are the hardest in NP. NP-complete problems are the hardest in NP. Algorithms analyze time and space efficiency. Algorithms analyze time and space efficiency.